Hello, happy Tuesday, and welcome to the Sabrena and Ben Real Estate Hour here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Ben will not be with us today. He texted me this morning and he's out at his feet. So things must be good in the mortgage industry. And Mark is on his way. As I drove in, I noticed that the dam is down to one lane today, so they're doing some road work. But anyway, things are really good in the real estate market. We do have a special guest that will be joining us here momentarily. Just wanted to give some helpful advice. Anyone out there thinking about selling their home, let me just tell you that the real estate market is hot. Homes are flying off the market as soon as we get them listed and put on the multiple listing site. It is unbelievable. Sellers are getting very good prices for their homes, either near asking price or over asking price in some cases. It's just unbelievable. So for anyone out there that's been thinking about selling their home, but they've been holding back, you need to get serious about it. And I wanted to just tell you the worst home selling advice that you can receive. If you're thinking about selling your home, here's some of the worst advice you can receive. And when you talk about selling your home, you're going to get advice from friends and family. Don't listen to this advice. If someone tells you to sell your home only in the spring or summer, we are getting ready to move into the fall and the winter. That's actually a pretty good time to sell your home. There's not as much competition. We still have serious buyers out there on the market looking for a home, so there's still people shopping. The rates are still low. We predict and hope that they will continue to remain low. But if someone tells you wait until the spring or summer to sell your home, that's bad advice. If someone tells you the market's slow, so you're better off waiting until it heats up to sell, well, the market has heated up. This has actually been the best time to sell since probably 2008. It's just unbelievable. If someone tells you not to stage or fix anything up, don't listen to them. Your home needs to be presentable. Remember that first impression is key. It's everything. You want to make a good impression. So if you can get someone to come in a cost-effective way, make recommendations on how to stage your home or make it more presentable, and I'm talking cost-effective ways, some fresh paint or something like that, by all means, heed their advice. Do not take photos with a camera. Nowadays, technology is so important. We find that 92% of buyers are finding their home on the internet. So you have to have a really good internet presence. Again, first impressions, everything. So hire an agent that's going to use a professional photographer. At Sabrena Realty, we have a phenomenal photographer. He does a really, really nice job on photos. That is so important. And if someone tells you the market is so hot, you don't need an agent, that's really, really, really bad advice. There are so many legalities involved in a real estate transaction. There's always, real estate is an ever-evolving industry in and of itself. There's always new RESPA guidelines, always contract changes. Very, very important to hire a professional that is up on all the new laws or regulations or changes, and someone who does it full-time for a living, someone that's actually going to invest in your home and in the listing and advertise and do all those things that are important to do to get it sold. And you should hire someone that's been recommended to you. So that's about the only advice. Hire someone that maybe a friend or a family has used and that has proven results. I recommend for people to interview 2 or 3 realtors. You don't always need to just hire the first one. You need to interview 2 or 3 realtors and go with the one that you think is going to do the best job for you. And at Sabrena Realty, we have a great team. They're standing by. So if anyone that's thinking about selling their home, call one of our agents at 423-499-7780. If you're thinking about buying a home, you don't know if you qualify, you don't know what price range you should be shopping in, call HomeRate Mortgage, one of Ben Phillips' team at 423-805-9100. They will get you pre-qualified. And then, of course, call Sabrena Realty, and we will help you find that dream home. Without any further ado, I want to bring our special guest in. We have one of our one of my favorite city council representatives, Larry Groen. He actually represents District 4, which is part of East Brainerd. He and I share a district. I'm the county representative. He's the city representative, and he does a phenomenal job. I'll just tell you before I bring him in, I call him a lot. We always have issues that we're working on together. He's very responsive. He's very engaged in the community. He does a great job. He and I, shortly after I was elected, we committed that we would about every 3 months have community update meetings and invite all the residents that live in our district out to, discuss concerns they may have or issues going on in our community. Larry has been very engaged. He's been a great partner in that capacity. And I just love him dearly. Think the world of he and his wife, Carol. So, Larry, so happy to have you on the Sabrena and Ben Real Estate Hour today. You and I hadn't really rehearsed or talked about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to kind of just have a conversation.
Not at all. Hey, it's a great day. It's always a great day in Chattanooga.
Exactly.
But now we've got some rain all over the city. And
exactly.
You were talking about home sales. And just in my district out in East Brainerd.
Right.
Sales are up. The average price is up 10%.
It's unbelievable.
Year to date, prices that are being received is up like 8% from like 160 to 169, and getting 97% of asking price. Mm-hmm. So it varies throughout the city, but you can see from the data that they're when it kind of bottomed out. In some areas that now we're higher than we were before.
Absolutely. So, and something else, another important number, another important statistic that shows you how the market is right now is our average time on the market last year was 4.5 months. That was the average time on the market. Now it's 60 days.
Well, in some areas it's down to 53.
Yeah.
So, and what's really, what I try to tell folks, especially that are thinking, that are mm-hmm. moving here, thinking where are we going to move to, even though the districts that we represent are exploding in growth.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll give an example. Just in a area from in my district, from Council Fire, say out to Collegedale.
Oh, absolutely.
We have somewhere around $250 million in economic development taking place in terms of single-family homes, apartment complexes, the Erlanger East build-out, which is, we're pushing for completion on that, is going to be at the end of this year. So there's tremendous growth there. But what you see, especially in my district in East Brainerd, is that a lot of these neighborhoods were developed in the 1960s or 1970s. And a lot of the folks that have lived in those homes and raised families there for generations or decades, I should say, are now, it's time for them to move on to somewhere else, which we can take care of out in East Brainerd.
Oh, yeah, we sure can.
But now I'm seeing infill from folks in their 30s and 40s that are wanting to come to an area that pretty much has everything that they need in terms of course, Chattanooga, we have a church almost on every corner.
Oh, yeah.
But when you can stake your home down and within 3 miles, you can get anything that you need, including eating in different place every day for 5 weeks and never going back to the same place. It's great to represent a district like that.
It really is.
And it's really nice that my district is overlapped by yours and Commissioner Boyd. So the teamwork that we've had there has been really well.
And it's important to have that teamwork, because you can't have someone represent a district like ours that's not going to be fully engaged and have a lot of energy. I mean, you and I both know that a lot of our time is consumed with new zoning projects and stuff like that, where we go out and help developers meet with the community and address concerns and stuff like that.
Like the one you had last night. What'd you have? 80 or 90 people there?
Had probably 80 people there. The meeting was about a 2-hour meeting. We'll have another one tonight and another one next Monday. And it's because it's where people want to come and live. We're considered to have great schools. We do have a lot of restaurants, like you said, variety of churches, all kinds of things to do. And right there in District, I say District 7, which is the county district, or District 4, East Brainerd, Collegedale, Ooltewah, and Appleton. And it's just, we're very fortunate, Larry, because and I know this is important to you as a representative as it is to me, because of all the tax revenue being generated and brought in from the growth in our district, we have been able to pass a balanced budget without a tax increase.
Absolutely. So
that's important.
Yeah, when you have that type of economic development, your property tax revenue increased 14 million last year. So when you have an increase like that, yes, it enables you to. It should enable you to do the things that government is supposed to do, which is some of the issues that you and I have, especially in the area that is in the city limits of Chattanooga. So,
well, the thing is, we can make a good case when we know the tax revenue being brought in is coming directly from our district. We can make a good case anyway. Hey, we've got infrastructure needs. We're going to need a bit middle school. These are things you and I really have to push for.
Oh yes, even though it's deep in your district, it's very important that this newly constituted school board that comes on, and even the 5 members that are staying on, we have to be a little bit proactive about how we look at growth in our school district, because there's a tremendous need everywhere in the county, and I know they have limited funds, but if I was going to target 2 schools, I would target 3 schools. This is what I would do. I would target CSLA, and I would target
East Hamilton Middle.
Well, I would target the problems that we have at East Hamilton. Look, we opened with the school that was meant for 1,400, and we opened with over 1,600. And when we got to 1,800, they decided to rezone.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I have constituents in my district that specifically moved into the district to go to East Hamilton.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, after they've been at school there for 3 years, they told, well, you have to finish your senior year
at Ottawa.
And we're not going to give you a way to get there. So there's a tremendous need for a new middle school.
There is.
And I know that Appleton Middle School is on the books. So, those are things. But we have schools that some schools that only have 50%.
That's right. They're
of
under
the school
capacity.
Is filled. So it's wonderful, the old schools that we have and the tradition that is with those. But in some cases, we just have to move on.
Well, when the Department of Education's behind at $243 million in just maintenance alone, it's, you just really led into something I want to discuss going forward. We have an election right around the corner, Thursday. And what just absolutely floors me, Larry, is that there are 185,000 some odd registered voters in Hamilton County. And the turnout for early voting for this August election has been very low. I read in the paper today, only 11,509 votes were cast in early voting.
So not even close to 10%.
Exactly. So Thursday is a very important election. On the ballot, we have this school board races. I think it's very, very important we get out. If we want to see a change in public education, we want to see a change for the better. It's important to us who the new leadership is going to be in terms of a superintendent. Then this is our way to get out and really have a voice in it by casting your vote. I think we're at a critical time. You were just talking about the schools that are under capacity. We need to elect people that are going to honestly get in there and shake things up a bit. They're going to look at these schools that are grossly under capacity, and they're going to, have the grit to make those tough decisions. Do we close these schools down? Do we, what do we do? And I'm not saying I have the answers, but, in terms of CSLA, we know that CSLA, there's a lot of folks that would love for their kids to go there. If CSLA had a high school, I can only imagine from a common sense perspective, it would alleviate some of the overcrowding in some of our high schools. So is there a school that's grossly under capacity right now that if we had the right people in there making those tough decisions, those smart business decisions, they could give them a high school tomorrow?
Well, I think that you have an issue here in transportation also.
Yes, that's true.
When I grew up, I had to walk 2 blocks to my elementary school. Yeah. I had to walk 3 blocks to my junior high school. That's how old I am. But it's great to have these community schools. I don't really believe in mega schools either.
Right.
But we got to find that little Goldilocks position.
You're right. Well, tell me.
But see, CSLA I don't think should be done as one big huge project. There's so much there's so much land there.
Yeah.
That they could develop a plan to transition, and they could bring in some folks who are much smarter than I am. And they could figure out a way. They could figure out a way to build it in 3 stages, and then transition into those buildings. And as they move people out of the old building, they transition them into the new buildings and do it in stages. And within 6 or 7 years, we'd be able to have a K through 12 campus there, instead of just saying, "Oh, we're going to dump $50 million right here and do it in one fell swoop." For me, I don't think that's practical. But that's just my opinion.
Well, why do you think the voter turnout so low right now? What is happening? Because I mean, the public has been paying attention to public education, so you would think that they would be very concerned and going to cast their vote in the school board election. Plus, we've got the assessor property on the ballot. We've got a number of state representatives. Mike Carter, he's been a phenomenal advocate for the people in terms of passing legislation to stop forced annexation. I mean, I would think that this would fire people up to go to the polls. What do you think is holding people back?
Life. If people, here's what I haven't even been in Chattanooga 9 years. Carol and I moved here in September of 2007. But in that short of a time here, I have pretty much, there's a lot of voter apathy out there because they feel that no matter what they do, that they are not being heard. And I'll give you a prime example. I think it's if I were king for a day, the city council would not have any meetings at 1:30 or 3 o'clock. They just wouldn't. They would either rotate in the evening, very similar to what the county commission does. We would have an agenda session on a Tuesday, on every even Tuesday, and and then we would have our agenda session the next week, or we would have 2 meetings a week. We would have an agenda meeting on Tuesday night, and then we would have our general meeting on a Thursday night, so that more people could attend and participate. And I think I completely understand. I've been in city council, and people have come up at the end to talk, and I'll try to be kind. These folks need some mental help. But there are some individuals there that really want to speak. Yeah. But there's also a fine line between, have they actually spoken to the council members before they come up, and are they there just for a hot topic of the moment, or are they really trying to have some substantial change in the neighborhood? Yeah. So it's a very fine line there, but I have a really hard time with allowing people 3 minutes. Yeah. And that's all you get, and that's all we want to hear from you. Some council members think that the first question they want to ask is, well, where do you live and what district do you live in? Like we have 9 fiefdoms in Chattanooga. And it's like I tell folks every time I'm anywhere on the air, is that, yes, I'm elected by the citizens of the 4th district, and I'm there to represent them. But every single vote that I make affects each and every citizen of Chattanooga, just like each and every vote you make affects each and every person in the city and in the county. So I think it's very important that I am personally responsible to each and every citizen of Chattanooga. So I welcome input.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Now, you were elected in 2013.
Yes.
And you ran again in 2017. it March of 2017?
Yes, it's actually this week. We're actually only 7 months away from the city elections.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Well, for anyone out there, I like for them to get to know our representatives and stuff. Tell us maybe what has been the most frustrating thing to you serving on the city council, and then maybe what's been the most rewarding or most positive thing for you.
Well, the most positive is very easy. I get the most satisfaction out of individual citizens that call up that have had a huge problem with bureaucracy. The story of the young firefighter who, when he and his wife bought their home, both parents gave them money for the down payment. So he wanted to take advantage of refining that property to really lower they were going to have a second or third child, and they wanted to refi to lower their payments. Well, he goes to do this and finds out that he's got a $562 lien on his home. And it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
So for 5 weeks, he's trying to correct this problem.
Yep.
So what has happened is that he got a lien put on his home that had nothing to do with his property, but had to do with 3 lots in their little subdivision. I found out that every single home owner in that subdivision had that lien on there from the city having gone to cut those. It took me 12 days to get this taken care of.
Wow.
And it was 2 days before he was going to lose his option. So it took us almost 7 weeks to clear this up.
So you get satisfaction in results and actually having a positive impact and getting something
done.
Oh,
absolutely. But then I had to go back in and get it wiped off of everybody else. They only did it, the city attorney's office only did it for his lot, his home. So I had to go in and get it done for all the other 25 homeowners who never knew that there was a lien on their property.
Wow, you're probably their hero. Yeah, if they would have ever gone to sell, it would have shown up. I deal with stuff like that a lot. Just where the city may put a lien on a property and the property owner never even knows it. I found that more frequently in East Ridge than I have city of Chattanooga.
How many city councilmen do you know that have their boots and their knee boots and their machete in the back of the?
I only know one county commissioner that's got that, but you're right, and you are one of a kind, Larry. When we come back after the break, I want to talk more about what you see yourself doing going forward. And I know you've got some exciting things you've been working on, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk about all that. And I think Mark will be joining us after the break as well. Again, anyone thinking about buying a home or selling a home, call Sabrena Realty Associates. We can be reached at 423-499-7780. That's 423-499-7780. Go to our website, SabrenaRealty.com. We have some great deals, some great listings. We have them in gated communities, golf courses, you name it. So go check it out. Our sellers are willing to negotiate, make a deal with you today. If you need to be pre-qualified for a loan or don't know what price range you need to be shopping in, call 423-805-9100. That's 423-805-9100. One of the team members over at HomeRate Mortgage would just love to talk to you about pre-qualifying you for a home. Join us back here in just a few minutes after the break on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Welcome back to the Sabrena and Ben Real Estate Hour here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Mark, we're glad you could join us.
Well, I'm glad I could get here.
What'd you do? Get caught in that traffic
coming over the dam? 80 cones and 1 lane and a lot of rubberneckers, but I'm here. Glad to be here.
Well, we are joined today by Councilman Larry Groen, who is one of my favorite city council representatives. And Larry, we were talking before the break, what's been, I guess, one of the most positive aspects of serving.
If you want to get to the negative,
well, no, not really. Well, what's been the most frustrating? And I'm kind of curious as to what your plans are moving forward. I know that you said that if you run again for the city council, you have to be planning that pretty soon because that election is 7 months away.
7 months from this week. It's actually 4 months. 16 weeks after the presidential election. Really
That's
fast.
soon.
Really
That's
fast.
soon.
So, biggest frustration. People might remember that there was a lot of discontent with the taxpayers, the voters in the city, and there were 7 new faces on the council.
Sure was.
5 city council members who ran for re-election were defeated, and
Everyone that had opposition got
everyone
right?
everyone that had opposition was defeated, and that was primarily because of a lot of issues. We had we had 300% increase in stormwater fees,
Forced annexations.
forced annexations, and we had a tax increase.
Sure did.
So, and the public really viewed, and I really viewed the council as a rubber stamp for the mayor. Well, my biggest frustration is that our city council is not an independent legislative body. They are even more of a rubber stamp for the current administration than the previous council was. And when you have a situation like that, here the mayor presents a $300 million budget, and there's not one change made to the budget, not one. And it's disingenuous for the mayor to say, well, we have doubled the amount of money being put into the general budget for road repairs. Mm-hmm. Well, what he didn't say is that we're at the same amount. We've been at the same amount roughly for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Is there a particular line item that you would have liked to have seen changed, or a particular?
About 95% of the budget I'm fine with. Okay. It deals with a lot of issues that we're having to deal with the city. But for me, to get into specifics, it would be we have a lot issues that we're putting Band-Aids on.
Yeah, like crime.
Well, yes.
I don't even know if there's a Band-Aid being put on that.
A big Band-Aid.
Yeah, workforce development. Mm-hmm. I think we're in the wrong direction on workforce development. But when you speak of parts of the budget, it's, for example, I wanted to increase. There was a group came in that I went out to investigate, spoke to the individuals running this. It's in another councilman's district. He doesn't even know about this program. I wanted to. They asked for full funding of their program, a little over $200,000. The groups that the mayor picked to determine who gets what funding based upon his budgeting for outcomes initiatives decided to give them $20,000. Their reasoning was that, well, we don't have the money to fully fund them, so we will just give them this, hoping that will keep them alive and at least help them for this coming year. Well, I wanted to double that money. So from 20 to 40,000, I could not even get the city council person that this program was in his district
would have benefited his constituents
to help, because the mayor had already made a decision that he wanted this budget to skate through. So I even made a statement when the budget was coming up that I'm not totally happy with this budget, but if I'm happy with 90% of it, what use is voting against it and have an 8-to-1 vote?
Right.
So I'll just continue to work in other areas to try to get things done. But when you don't have a council that is going to be separated from the executive branch,
and
that's
true. It's the way it was set up.
It's a problem. It is set up as a strong mayor system. And the mayor can, in this system, and I'm not talking about this mayor, but any mayor in this system, would be able to go in and say, Sabrena, what would you like to see in your district?
Yeah.
Let's talk about this on the budget, which is exactly what happened. And I know it's politics, but I tell everybody I'm a public servant. I'm not a politician.
Yeah, well, I like that.
So
I'd rather have that title too. A lot of people are really concerned, Larry, about the crime that's going on in Chattanooga. And, every day you wake up, it seems, you read the paper, listen to the radio, and someone's been shot. Do you have an idea or perspective on how we're going to get a handle because this is a community problem. I don't push this off into the city at all. I think it's a problem for anyone that lives in Hamilton County.
Well, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and I was a minority in my neighborhood. And so for everybody out there, I'm slightly younger than dirt. So, but
looking good.
But let me tell you, I lived in an area, and I'll bound it at 6 blocks by 6 blocks, or 36 square blocks. In 18 months, when I was 13, 14, there were 6 gang killings in that area, and things haven't changed. None of those killings were with guns. Mm-hmm. So all that's changed is the method. Mm-hmm. But it's like Paul Harvey says, and now you know the rest of the story. Some of our last killings were sons of people that were notorious in crime. Yeah. In Chattanooga in times past, back in the 80s and 90s. And so we hear all these stories about where they were just walking down the street. Well, when you've got a parent who has been involved in major crime and drug dealing, or some of the folks that were busted back in the 80s, in the mid 80s and late 80s in Chattanooga, and then their son or grandson is being shot on the street. Yeah. This is not just a coincidence. Right. And I do have a problem with our police chief saying that, well, most of these shootings are just because of disrespect on Facebook. No, there can be some truly. What I see is that the mayor got so much backlash from the worst of the worst, because every single person in that,
putting them on the front page of the paper, right.
Yeah, and every single one was black, and the community, the minority community in Chattanooga went crazy.
Well, I say put their picture out there. I don't care if they're Caucasian, Hispanic, or what they are.
It seems that the whole idea of Violence Reduction Initiative was to have a serious talk with those individuals that are most involved in gang activities. Mm-hmm. Come on. The authorities, all the authorities, ATF, DEA, they all know who the gang leaders are in Chattanooga. Yeah. This is not, a hidden information. Right. But when you bring these folks in and tell them, if this happens, we're going to, these are going to be the consequences, and then those consequences don't happen. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to say that, well, we've had well over 300 arrests of gang members. Mm-hmm. And then you find out that over 250 of those arrests were on misdemeanors. Wow. A tail light that's out, or you've stolen a candy bar at Walmart, or whatever, or you have a license tag that is out of date. So, and true, Attorney General Pinkston is upset because these misdemeanor crimes clog up his court dockets. Mm-hmm. So what good does it do? These folks, we're going to take them down. We're going to put them in jail. We're going to spend all this money and time, and they're out of jail in an hour or two?
It is costing the taxpayers a lot of money.
Absolutely. You take someone off of the beat. Mm-hmm. It could take up to an hour, hour and a half to get from your district down to the jail. Absolutely. Check them in before you get back out. I was doing a ride along. We picked up a guy who was dead to rights, 11 priors. He had taken property stolen in burglary and hawked it at a pawn shop. So we had this guy dead, and took him down. He was out before our shift was over.
Yeah, and that's what happens. And they're coming into our communities. I go around to all the neighborhood watches, and it seems that drugs seems to be a growing epidemic for one thing, and these criminals are stealing people's property and selling it very quickly to turn over to get some cash to buy drugs. It's what's happening in a lot of instances.
See, this is a multifactorial problem.
Yeah, it is.
You have we have a welfare program to help folks that are in need. But let's say that you have a child and all of a sudden he turns 18 and he's not going to school. He's not going to Chat State or some other college.
Right.
Well, that's because he either dropped out or he graduated from Howard High School and can only read at the 4th grade level. And I'm not picking on Howard. I mean, we have these issues all over the county. But that young person is no longer bringing money into the household.
Mm-hmm.
So they've now become from someone that you get financial help to take care of to someone who is a burden. And if they're not working, because number one, they don't have any skills, they don't have a good education, they don't have a work ethic, and they've had no father in the home. So that's what I'm talking about, multifactorial. Then you have someone that is told to get out.
Yeah.
And then they become a problem. So when I tell you that we're putting Band-Aids on issues and not addressing the core problem, we are. There are a lot of nonprofits throughout the city that are addressing these problems.
They're trying to.
But they don't have enough funding.
Exactly.
So how do we correct that? How do we take the urban core that surrounds downtown? And what I tell folks, it's between the city and the ridge for the most part, or out to Brainerd High School.
Right.
And you sweep from the river all the way down into Alton Park to the Georgia state line. 15 to 18% of all properties are either boarded up, abandoned, or vacant lots.
Yeah.
15 to 18%. Plus, only 35%, roughly, average, are owner occupied. And in some districts, a major percentage of those owners are over the age of 60.
Yeah.
So there's some areas where 65% of all the homeowners are over the age of 60. So we have an issue where we need to revitalize this urban core, because a lot of people over a long period of time, starting with the first development of Jack's Fish Bowl, and talk about someone with vision and insight is Jack Lupton, but we've developed this little jewel on the hill, but it's totally surrounded by decay.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to address the issue of a lack of affordable housing, true affordable housing. Look, $750 a month for rent for a 500 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment is not affordable housing unless you are single and working downtown.
Well, we have a poverty issue. You know, right along those lines, 60% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. I mean,
in some schools it's 100%, 95%.
I mean, it's a problem. But, you know, back to, it's a community problem. It's going to take a community effort, I think. And like you said, I want to see a lot more people a lot smarter than me involved. But I think churches are going to play a key role if we're ever going to solve it. I think we need prayer for sure. We need to be praying for our city, and we've got to support our law officers. We've got to support our police, the sheriff's department, and our first responders. I mean, it is almost unimaginable what has been happening across our country. It's heartbreaking. And I ask myself, how on earth did we get here? Well, as in many cases, it goes back to leadership.
Well, it's like, for example, HUD has realized that they can't develop large housing complexes and put the most uneducated, the most ill-equipped, and those without any skills into all they create is a cesspool that will suck you down.
Yeah.
And
keep you down.
Yes. And so what I say is the big thing that's lacking in a lot of areas of town is hope.
Right.
What we're seeing is we're starting to see very intense blight in some areas. When I can drive you less than 3 miles from downtown, 10 minutes, and I can take you to an area where 3 blocks by 4 blocks and 22 of the homes are boarded up and there are 6 vacant lots. That's a problem. When we tear down 1,000 homes and don't replace them with some sort of affordable housing, we have a problem. Why can't we revive? No developer of any substance is going to go into these pockets. So it is going to be up to, and for me, it's got to be a faith-based initiative.
It does have to be.
It has to be,
Mm-hmm.
because we can train people, we can take them in, train them, do everything, but unless there's a change in attitude and a change in purpose in life, what have we done for these folks? We've given them some skills, but no new direction to how to handle the opportunity. So not only could we initiate a training program that would, number one, create transitional housing, voucher housing, take what Habitat and CNE and CHOTA is doing, and let's multiply it. Let's it's great what Habitat does, but 26 years, 250 homes. It's a wonderful program. I'm fully supportive of them, but we need 3 or 4 times that amount.
Well, you know, if we were going to be giving out incentives to developers, it should have been in these areas, in my mind. I mean, to encourage them to come in and revitalize.
That's why I went to a seminar, Vacant to Value, up in Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan, that county, and Genesee County, where Flint, Michigan is, are the 2 largest land banks in the United States, with over 200,000 foreclosed properties. So they have a huge program of revitalization. We have it here in Chattanooga, just in a smaller population area and a smaller scale, but we need hundreds of affordable housing here. Not only for transitional housing for people who want to get into some program, which I myself have started up, and we need to have much more housing for voucher housing, and we need to have much more housing for low-income home ownership. Our economy has changed to the degree that 60 years ago, you could get out of high school and you could find some place. If you wanted to work, you could find a place to work in Chattanooga in the 50s and the 60s. That was not a problem. It was hard work.
Yeah.
You're going to a foundry, that's hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you could end up purchasing your own home, which many people did in the South Side and in East Lake Park area of Chattanooga. And that was the way that families built their investment.
Right.
That's how they did it.
And the way we were created as humans, I mean, that is a way too to get self-fulfillment and self-worth and feel self-value. I mean, it's doing it really what you and I have always known, the American way, working hard. It means something when you go out and you work hard and you persevere and you don't give up and you finally see some light at the end of the tunnel and things come into fruition. I mean, that is where you really.
But you don't just wake up one day. You don't just wake up one day and you have that. When you are raised in a family, I don't care whether it's black, white, or brown, green, or purple. If you're raised in a family that does not know how to overcome obstacles,
that's where the hope has to come in.
That's where the hope has to come in, and that's where the guidance and mentoring has to come in. So when you're talking about a program that's going to turn the violence issue around, do we have a hardcore group of individuals who are involved in criminal activities that are never going to take this offer that our violence reduction initiative has put out there?
That may be the case for a lot of them.
But I think there are many, many, many more folks that would like to do it the right way, but don't have the mentors or the skills. They don't have these. You hear about soft skills all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's like, well, sit down and think about this. You got this problem. How can we overcome this? Yeah. They don't have those skills.
I know.
And it's something that you learn over time.
And you're taught it, and especially a lot of the kids that do have it, they've got 2 parents in the home that are working with them and taking quality time with them and teaching them. And a lot of these kids nowadays just don't have that.
Well, yeah, I want to lift up a new friend of mine. It's Reggie Jordan, and Reggie teaches the construction trades training class at Howard High School. Yeah. And Reggie graduated from there. The teacher who was going to retire called Reggie up and said, you ought to come in and see, my classes and how we're doing here. So Reggie goes in and he sits in on a couple of classes, and then the other shoe drops. And he says, well, I'm getting ready to retire and I really want you to take this over. So Reggie says, well, I'll just go think about it. I'll go talk to my wife. And so Reggie goes home and says, she tells him, well, you need to pray about this. Mm-hmm. And Reggie went, no, I don't want to pray about this. So this goes on for a couple of weeks. And because Reggie knew that if he prayed about it, he'd hear something. And sure enough, he just finished up. He's just going to be starting his 3rd year there.
That's awesome.
And I've been in his class, and he tells his young men that are in his class, most of you are not going to go to college. Yeah. Maybe one day you might think about it, but if you follow my program and you learn the skills I'm going to teach you, you can walk out of school when you graduate and you can get a good job.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
He has taken some of those young men and built an entire home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in a year. And then they build storage buildings. So if you're in the market for storage buildings, please contact Reggie Jordan at Howard High School. They will build one for you.
Well, Larry, you've got maybe 30, 40 seconds. What do you want to say to wrap up today?
Well, it's going to be interesting in September when individuals pick up their papers to qualify for the city elections that are in March of 2017.
So stay tuned.
So I know that there are some out there that are considering running for mayor, even if it's against Mayor Burke. Okay. So we'll just
stay tuned. It's going to be
interesting. Stay tuned, folks. It's going to be exciting.
And speaking of elections, please, if you have not gone out to the polls and voted, please go this Thursday, August the 4th. Very important elections on the ballot.
Absolutely.
We have several school board races, state representatives that are up for re-election, and the assessor of property. Very important races.
Very important.
So please go out to the polls.
It's important. It's important who are in these positions. It matters a lot, and
it matters who governs.
It matters who governs, and for me, we need change on the school board.
That's true. And meanwhile, for anyone thinking about buying a home or selling a home, call Sabrena Realty, 423-499-7780. That's 423-499-7780. Call Ben Phillips to get pre-qualified for a mortgage, 423-805-9100. That's 805-9100. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back next week here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.